I first met the Scalabrinians as I was graduating from the University of Notre Dame, a Catholic university located near Chicago. The university encourages students to live their faith through acts of service. As a volunteer, I taught English classes for Latin American immigrants in the university's town after living as an exchange student in Mexico and Chile. I knew that I wanted to return to Latin America to do service work when I graduated, and a professor encouraged me to contact the Scalabrinians about volunteering at the Casa del Migrante in Tijuana, Mexico, on the border with San Diego, California. I had never been to Tijuana or heard of the Scalabrinians, but after meeting Father Miguel Alvarez, who is now our provincial, and speaking with Brother Gioacchino Campese, the Casa's assistant director, I discerned God's call to the Casa to work with the Scalabrinians and share in their charism. I moved to Tijuana as a volunteer to live and work at the Casa, as we minister to immigrants from all over the world. The Casa's facade displays this passage from Matthew. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me, which greets everyone who comes there seeking shelter and love. I tried to take that message to heart in my volunteer service. To me, the most important part of our work was not providing food, clothing, and shelter to the migrants, which we did each day. Rather, the most valuable thing we did was give the gift of that biblical welcome through a smile and the openness to sit and listen to the migrants. Countless migrants gladly shared their stories and wanted to know mine, even though we came from different places and backgrounds. Many of them arrived with nothing but the clothes on their backs due to the sins of war, violence, poverty, racism, extortion, and corruption that they faced on their journey. They were only seeking a better life for themselves and their families. Just as then, blessed Scalabrini, I strive to see the face of Christ in each person who was made in the image and likeness of God, just like I am. Hearing their stories helped me understand what St. Scalabrini meant when he said, in almost all cases, migration is not a pleasure, but an unavoidable necessity. Brother Gioacchino and the Casa's then director, Father Jesus Olivares, were also part of an interfaith group of people of goodwill from both sides of the border, in Tijuana and San Diego. We fought for the rights of migrants and spoke out on their behalf through prayer vigils, political activism, press conferences, and humanitarian efforts. At that time, as we began the new century, more fences were being built, which sadly has only continued in the decades since. And the border was becoming militarized, as if the United States faced an enemy invasion. I saw history repeating itself as it has across continents and millennia, in fear of the other, and contrary to the will of our God, who has come to gather all nations, our theme this week. Hearing the migrant stories and learning more about St. Scalabrini moved my heart to the vocation of being a lawyer who would work with immigrants and advocate for them. No one in my family was a lawyer, and in fact, I was the first person in my family to even go to university. But I hoped and prayed that I could live my Scalabrinian spirituality in this way. By 2005, I'd achieved my law license and began working in Los Angeles, California, as an attorney at a nonprofit organization called Bet Zedek Legal Services. Bet Zedek is a Hebrew phrase that means house of justice. We are a non-sectarian NGO that provides free legal services to our low-income clients, regardless of their race, religion, or immigration status. As a lawyer, I represent primarily undocumented Latin American immigrants in cases against their employers. when their wages have been stolen, or they have experienced discrimination, or they have been fired unlawfully. The tangible results of my representation, when my clients receive their owed wages or are restored to their jobs, help them to support their families in the United States and their home countries. But more importantly, and regardless of the outcome of their case, they know that I accept them in their human dignity, whatever their language or place of origin, and that I'm committed to accompanying them in their journey. When I moved to Los Angeles, I became a member of St. Peter's Italian Church, a Scalabrinian parish where several like-minded lay people and I began learning more about St. Scalabrini. We became a group of lay Scalabrinians under the guidance and leadership of Father Giovanni Bisotto and Father Raniero Alessandrini. We prayed and studied the scriptures and the writings of St. Scalabrini as we pondered what role we had as lay people, each with our own professions and familial commitments. In 2008, during a Eucharistic celebration, we had our commitment ceremony, where I stated, I am determined to follow the footsteps of St. Scalabrini, father of the migrants, to enrich my life with his vision and spirituality. In the years since then, my fellow lay Scalabrinians and I at St. Peter's have attempted to accompany and support the migrants in our community, guided by the founder's vision, using the gifts and talents that God has given us. We have participated in many activities to support our migrant brothers and sisters and siblings in Los Angeles and beyond, including food and clothing drives, resource fairs, fundraising banquets for Scalabrinian seminarians, in our Archdiocesan Mass for recognition of all immigrants. We have also worked with another group of lay Scalabrinians at Our Lady of the Holy Rosary, a parish located 25 kilometers from St. Peter's. In fact, at Holy Rosary, a new group of lay Scalabrinians began their journey last month, studying about the founder and his charism. I will join them after I return home from the Symposium to share my experiences with them and to help them learn about Scalabrinian spirituality. I've also continued supporting the Casa de Migrante in Tijuana, which is 2 hours away from Los Angeles, depending on traffic, by providing donations and bringing groups of volunteers to cook and share a meal with the migrants. During my formation as a lay Scalabrinian, I was especially moved to learn about the St. Raphael Society. St. Scalabrini was prophetic in recognizing the crucial role that lay people can and must serve in building the reign of God on earth. The principle that lay people have a valuable and important vocation, just as priests and religious do, was likely a shocking idea at that time, nearly 100 years before the Second Vatican Council decreed that through our baptismal calling, the laity share in the priestly, prophetical, and kingly office of Christ, and play our part in the mission of the whole people of God in the church and in the world. Indeed, more than 140 years after the founder established the St. Raphael Society, Pope Francis often reminds us that clericalism hinders, and in fact is contrary to, God's plan that we all work together to seek the reign of God. This is certainly a challenge for all of us, laity and consecrated Scalabrinians, to use our many gifts through our unique yet complementary vocations to heed St. Scalabrini's call in our time and in our world. Scalabrinian missionaries who do not embrace and encourage the lay people in their parishes, schools, and missions are failing to heed St. Scalabrini's example and therefore are denying the migrants the opportunity to more fully know his charism and God's love. They're also inhibiting the growth of Scalabrinian spirituality in our world that desperately needs it. I hope that encounters like this week's symposium will allow lay people and priests and religious to build bridges in our shared commitment to follow St. Scalabrini's example. I'm honored and humbled to be here representing the hundreds of lay Scalabrinians in the St. John the Baptist province. They are truly living their Scalabrinian charism in their communities every day and serving as a model for all Scalabrinians. Saint Scalabrini's spirituality offers so much for all of us to learn from and to share with each other, regardless of whether we are lay or consecrated. I commit, and I ask everyone here to commit, to intentionally and deliberately seek that dialogue and the shared spiritual journey with each other as we return to our homes and communities. Just like in the founders' time and throughout human history, we live in an era where migrants and refugees are on the move and need spiritual, economic, political, and social support. In my country, and unfortunately in many of yours, some people with power and influence channel racism and xenophobia to scapegoat migrants and accuse them of being criminals and thieves. Instead of leading society towards acceptance of migrants and celebrating the numerous ways they enrich our society and church, these sinful voices try to divide through fear and blame. As Scalabrinians, we must confront this difficulty by speaking against these false values and by acting with God's love to protect and serve the migrants and other vulnerable people who do not have advocates. As a lay Scalabrinian working at a Jewish organization, I have seen how our beautiful Catholic social teaching has its roots in and shares much with our Jewish cousins' tradition. Throughout the Hebrew scriptures, we hear the call to take special care of widows, orphans, and strangers, the most vulnerable members of the ancient Israelite society and our societies today. As the prophet Micah writes, we have been told what is good and what the Lord requires of us, only to do justice and to love goodness and to walk humbly with our God. Not only to seek justice or to pray for justice, but to do justice. And we Scalabrinians are called to walk humbly with our God by walking with the migrants. Guided by Saint Scalabrini's example and the spiritual heritage he entrusted to us, I strive to do justice and serve the migrants through my work and my life every day in Los Angeles. It is not easy. When I see many people actively seeking to harm migrants in our polarized society, and I hear heartbreaking news stories of migrants dying in their journeys, I feel upset and discouraged. When I experience these moments of frustration, I return to the strength and wisdom of Saint Scalabrini's words and example, which along with prayer have allowed me over and over again to stay faithful to my Scalabrinian vocation. Colleagues who do not have the treasure of Scalabrinian spirituality have felt burnout or decided there are too many obstacles and challenges in supporting and accompanying migrants. Their actions prove to me that our Scalabrinian values must be the foundation of our work, and we must pray for grace, or else we too will face burnout and the temptation to give up. I've also found fortitude and renewed grace in the past year since Pope Francis and the entire church recognized the founder's place among the communion of saints. I was blessed to be at the canonization mass here in Rome, along with thousands of Scalabrinians from all corners of the globe. It was particularly meaningful to me to see gathered many of the consecrated Scalabrinians I've known over the years, and to be part of the celebration with a fellow lay Scalabrinian from St. Peter's. I know that Scalabrinian missionaries and lay people live in many places, but seeing the thousands of us at the Mass and the papal audience made the size and breadth of the Scalabrinian family tangible to me like nothing else before had done. It gives me comfort and strength to know that Saint Scalabrini unites all of us more than 100 years after he left this earth. Even though the people, issues, and cultures may be different from Saint Scalabrini's time, my spirituality links me to him, as well as to the Scalabrinian missionaries and St. Raphael Society members of his era. My spirituality also connects me to all of you gathered here today, to your confreres, and to my fellow lay Scalabrinians across the world. Just as lay Scalabrinians did in our founder's lifetime, I seek strength in prayer and the Eucharist, and see the face of Christ in all the migrants I seek out to accompany. This is my experience of Scalabrinian spirituality, a gift for which I thank God and our Saint Scalabrini. May his intercession bring us the grace and strength to always follow his example.
Thank you, my